The Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management (ODPEM) has confirmed that the earthquake that jolted parts of the island on Wednesday evening had a magnitude of 4.2. In a statement last evening, ODPEM said the quake struck at 8:02 p.m. The earthquake unit at the Mona campus of the University of the West Indies says the earthquake was felt in Kingston, St. Andrew, Portland, and St. Thomas. Its epicenter was located 5 kilometers south of Hope Bay in Portland. Meanwhile, a quake of a similar magnitude rattled the port of Spain on Wednesday. The Trinidad and Tobago-based Seismic Research Center, SRC, at the St. Augustine campus of the UWI said the quake occurred around 1:33 p.m. It was also felt in the city of Carupano in Venezuela. It was the second earthquake recorded by the SRC in the span of 24 hours. On Tuesday, a quake with a magnitude of 5.4 was felt in 3 countries: Bridgetown in Barbados, Castries in St. Lucia, and Fort-de-France in Martinique. There have been no reports of injuries or damage. A man has confessed to the killing of a policeman in St. Anne on April 15. Nationwide News understands that 29-year-old O'Shane Davis, also known as Sean Brown and Cautiony, told investigators he was the man who fired the fatal shots that struck Police Constable Ricardo Fairclough. Davis is understood to be facing charges of murder, shooting with intent to kill, possession of a prohibited weapon, and unauthorized possession of ammunition. On the day of the incident, the police announced that they had shot and killed 1 suspect, but were hunting at least 2 others in relation to the killing of their colleague. Davis is understood to have told investigators that he and 2 other men attacked a 26-year-old vendor along Bravo Street in St. Anne's Bay at about 8:25 p.m. on April 15. The vendor was shot in the face and upper body. While making their escape, the trio was tackled by Constable Fairclough and a shootout ensued. Constable Fairclough was shot and later pronounced dead at the St. Anne's Bay Hospital. Davis was shot in the abdomen and left hand. He made his way to the Falmouth Hospital in Trelawney, where he told doctors he was shot by a gunman during a robbery attempt. The police were called in and he was arrested. Murder accused and former Member of Parliament, the PNP's Jolyan Silvera, is due back in court this morning for another bail application hearing. The matter was postponed and it came up in the gun court in downtown Kingston on April 11. This will be Silvera's 4th court appearance since he was charged with the murder of his wife, Melissa, on January 16 this year. Melissa Silvera was initially reported to have died of natural causes in November 2023, but the matter was upgraded to a murder investigation after an autopsy revealed bullet fragments inside her body. Jolyan Silvera was later charged with her murder. He was also charged with using a firearm to commit a felony. At his last court appearance, King's Counsel Peter Champagny told journalists that outstanding documents contributed to the postponement of the bail application. KC Champagny stated that those outstanding documents must be furnished to the court today. Members of the media were not permitted to sit inside the courtroom at the last court hearing. In fact, they've been barred from covering the proceedings in keeping with the Gun Court Act. I never spoke to that murderer. That's the assertion of murder-accused Omar Kymore as he was questioned about conversations he allegedly had with the man convicted of killing his wife, Simone Campbell Kymore. Kymore's cross-examination continued in front of a 7-member jury at the Home Circuit Court in downtown Kingston on Wednesday. Noragay Banton has our story.
Simone Campbell Kymore and a taxi driver, Winston Walters, were shot and killed on January 2, 2018 at the entrance to her apartment complex on Stanley Terrace in Red Hill, St. Andrew. Her husband, Omar, is charged jointly with Michael Adams, Dwayne Pink and Shaquila Edwards with murder and conspiracy to murder. A 5th man, Wade Blackwood, who was one of the shooters, pleaded guilty to 2 counts of murder and 2 counts of illegal possession of a firearm in January 2021. 3 months later, he was handed 2 life sentences for the murders and 8.5 years for the firearm. After agreeing to testify in the trial, Blackwood was resentenced to life with eligibility for parole after serving 20 years. When his trial resumed on Wednesday, Kymore denied sharing a cell with Blackwood at the Halfway Tree police lockup. He later admitted that he and Blackwood did share the same cell at the Horizon Remand Adult Center in Kingston. However, Kymore indicated that they did not remain in the cell at the same time. Kymore also asserted that he never spoke with Blackwood during the time they were in lockup. Kymore's testimony significantly contrasted with that of Blackwood, who testified in March that he and Kymore spoke while in jail at the Halfway Tree lockup. When questioned by the senior prosecutor as to whether Blackwood asked him why he gave him a contract to kill Simone, Kymore denied that such a conversation occurred. Kymore was then pressed on whether he spoke to Blackwood about his wife's murder. However, in a stern voice, Kymore replied,
"No, never. I never spoke to that man. I never spoke to that murderer. Period."
Kymore was then asked whether Blackwood told him he would plead guilty. However, he maintained that Blackwood never spoke to him. The prosecution also suggested to Kymore that he had told Blackwood how to plead while they shared a cell at the police lockup. But Kymore insisted,
"No, I never spoke to that man. Period."
Kymore stated that he shared a cell with Blackwood for about 1 month. According to Kymore, he had never met Blackwood before sharing a jail cell with him. He further stated that he did not know who killed his wife until Blackwood pleaded guilty. Kymore also denied that one of his co-defendants, Michael Adams, indicated that Kymore was the one who gave him a contract to kill his wife. The trial resumes on Thursday at 10. Nora Gay Banton for Nationwide News.
The Bank of Jamaica says the existing legislative framework hindered its ability to hold the deposit-taking institutions to account for failing to protect customers from bank fraud. The central bank's deputy governor, Wayne Robinson, made the disclosure on Wednesday during the sitting of Parliament's Economy and Production Committee. Mahiri Stewart tells us more.
Lawmakers reminded the central bankers on Wednesday that they have a duty not only to ensure the stability of the system, but also the protection of the customers it serves. South St. Catherine MP Fitz Jackson accused the bank of failing in this regard.
BOJ, in its broad mandate, has a responsibility, I would say, of equal proportion, not to just see to the stability of the banks and the banking system, but to also ensure that the licensees of the BOJ, the banks, in their conduct also protect the consumer, because banking laws essentially is not just to protect banks, but to protect the public whose monies they have in safekeeping.
BOJ Governor Richard Biles admitted that much of the central bank's mandate over the last few decades was focused on prudential affairs rather than customer service.
If you look at the laws that govern the Bank of Jamaica, you would be struck by how focused they are on prudential supervision. So they are concerned about balance sheet of the banks. Are their loans in good order? Are they profitable? All those things that speak to keeping the banks a going concern so that depositors' monies are safe. And in a way that has served us well, because we have not had a bank crisis in this country for 30 years.
Deputy Governor Wayne Robinson further added that this has left its legislation lacking in this regard. However, he says improvements are being pursued under the new Twin Peaks framework mandated by Finance Minister Dr. Nigel Clark.
The issue and the challenge as we see it is in terms of enforcement. And what we're saying is that we do not have a sufficiently robust redress mechanism where consumer protection matters are concerned. If you look at the BSA detail, our ability to, for example, impose financial penalties requires the matter to rise to the issue of the very same issue that you mentioned, where there is a threat to soundness and the systemic stability of the bank or of the system. So what we're saying is that the regulation and the processes need to be strengthened so that the regulator can have a more robust redress mechanism. And that is what we are pursuing under the Twin Peaks framework.
Mahiri Stewart for Nationwide News.
Meanwhile, Deputy Commissioner of Police in charge of crime Fitz Bailey has accused the banks of shifting the responsibility for deposit security to their customers.
What we find is that there's a shift, to me, and from where we stand as law enforcement officers, is that a lot of the financial institutions are now shifting the burden from themselves to the customer. Essentially what they are saying, that you have a responsibility to police your account. I have to treat with it as a professional and as a member of the JCA, but I am a customer as well. Just over the weekend, I got a report from someone who had her money in the bank, a nurse by profession, saving a few US dollars that when she traveled, her account was taken over by the cyber people. And when she made contact with the bank, and I spoke with members from the bank, and the first thing they say, that's not their responsibility, it's her responsibility. It's obvious that they clicked on something that they should not have clicked on.
DCP Bailey says banks must do more to caution customers against suspicious transactions. He says this can be accomplished through the proper use of technology.
I think there must be some way where we have artificial intelligence, whereby that some regime is put in place, whereby once there is a particular transaction that is not consistent with the particular customer, then there must be some level of alert, and the bank should be held responsible to ensure that some of those transactions are blocked. As I said, the law enforcement agency were now put under extreme pressure because the clients and the customers are not getting the type of redress that they anticipate at the bank.
Fitz Bailey, Deputy Commissioner of Police in charge of crime. He was speaking at Wednesday's sitting of Parliament's Economy and Production Committee. Chief of Defence Staff Rear Admiral Anthony Wims Gorman has been promoted to Vice Admiral following approval from the Defence Board. The promotion is set to take effect on Friday, May 10. Rear Admiral Wims Gorman was appointed Chief of Defence Staff 2 years ago on January 21. Her career spans 32 years at various command levels. According to a statement on Wednesday from the Office of the Prime Minister, Rear Admiral Wims Gorman has provided steady leadership to the JDF. 3 colonels have also been promoted to the rank of brigadier following the Defence Board's approval. They are Mahatma Williams, O'Neill Bogle, and Elon Clark. Williams is currently the brigade commander of the Jamaica Regiment, while Bogle is president of the Caribbean Military Academy. Clark is the brigade commander of the JDF's Maritime, Air, and Cyber Command. All 3 officers are graduates of the Royal Military Academy at Sandhurst in the United Kingdom and have earned postgraduate degrees. Let's go now. The U.S. government has condemned a Cuban court's decision to hand down lengthy sentences to a group of protesters as repression. 13 protesters were found guilty of crimes including sedition and sabotage earlier this year after they took to the streets in August 2022 to vent their frustration at lengthy power cuts. They were sentenced last week to jail terms of up to 15 years. Unauthorized public gatherings are illegal in Cuba, and protests are rare. But the dire state of the Cuban economy, which has led to food, fuel, and medicine shortages, as well as power cuts, has angered some so much they've been willing to defy the harsh laws. On Monday, U.S. Assistant Secretary of Western Hemisphere Affairs Brian Nichols wrote on X that the punishment was outrageous and unconscionable. Further afield, if the Israel-Hamas war stopped today, it would still take until the year 2040 to rebuild all the homes that have been destroyed in the nearly 7 months of Israel's bombardment and ground offensives in Gaza. That's according to an estimate released by the United Nations on Thursday. The United States has pressured Israel to increase aid deliveries during the war, and on Wednesday, Israel reopened a border crossing with hard-hit northern Gaza for the first time since it was damaged at the start of the war. Meanwhile, on his 7th visit since the latest war between Israel and Hamas broke out last October, the U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken pressed for a ceasefire deal. The proposed truce would free hostages held by Hamas in exchange for a halt to the fighting and the delivery of much-needed food, medicine, and water into Gaza. Palestinian prisoners are also said to be released as part of the deal.